Meanwhile, we are looking at the president's trip this week. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was presented with 4 separate lists of CCP demands from China's foreign minister in a 5-hour meeting during his trip to Indonesia over the weekend. The demands included a list of, quote, U.S. wrongdoings that must stop, according to the CCP. This as Anthony Blinken says that the U.S. expects President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping to speak in the upcoming weeks. Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane. General, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here. So is this a repeat from what we've seen in the past? The CCP tries to dress down officials from the U.S. during these meetings. What do you make of this most recent one in Indonesia over the weekend?
Yeah, well, I think it's exaggerated because we're pretty much dependent on China's state media for a lot of the sourcing on this, and they're certainly going to put their foreign minister in the best possible light. I think we had our day in court with China, as we've always had, you know, whether it's been Mike Pompeo from the previous administration or even Secretary Blinken from this. I think we put our issues on the table. The issue is, and I talked to Secretary Pompeo about this in the past, you know, no matter what the Chinese say, no matter how much they say we're going to try to cooperate and collaborate, they just continue to go back out after all of these talks and continue their aggressive, malign behavior. Nothing changes in terms of their behavior. The rhetoric may change from time to time, but the behavior is pretty steady. And I think what's different here, Maria, is both of these foreign ministers are representing administrations where the economy is taking a downturn, certainly, and policies are being criticized. I mean, we're pretty familiar with the policies here in the United States that the American people are critical of the president of. But in China, it's a little different and it's unusual. It has to do with the lockdowns over COVID and locking entire cities down like Shanghai, 30 million people plus, and the economic downturn that came as a result of it. And he's also got some internal criticism about the partnership he formed with Russia, given their barbarism and the war crimes they're being accused of, and becoming an international pariah. But nonetheless, listen, come November, in the fall of the year, in November, President Biden's facing, his party's facing an election, and obviously there's going to be, the American people get to give him a thumbs up, a thumbs down based on that. And President Xi is going to be enshrined at the National Party Congress.
That's right.
And being given another 5 years, likely an indefinite term. So this is a prelude, I think, to, as you mentioned, a discussion coming up. Whether they meet in November when the G20 is getting together remains to be seen. You know, President Xi hasn't traveled out of the country since COVID, not one time. So we'll see if he's up to getting actually attending the G20 meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he went to Hong Kong once, but that was about it. But General, I mean, is there anything that will stop China's bad behavior? I spoke with Marsha Blackburn on Sunday, senator from Tennessee, and she was saying that the policies that we've got in this country make it easy for China to continue to commit these wrongdoings, whether it be intellectual property theft or dressing down of our officials, because the policy is so easy here. Here's Marsha Blackburn on Sunday Watch.
You have to keep the tariffs in place. I was visiting with a Tennessee wire manufacturer this week. I said, hey, did the tariffs help or hurt? They said, Marsha, it keeps China from dumping into the U.S. You have to keep those. And secondly, sending 5 million barrels of oil, China getting 1 million barrels of our strategic petroleum reserve. This is wrong. And people are fed up with this. It is a China-first policy, not an America-first policy. It has got to end.
General.
Well, yeah, certainly we need a whole-of-government approach in dealing with China. I mean, what China's trying to seek is world domination. And what they want to dominate very specifically is economically, militarily, technologically, and geopolitically. I think the administration, by and large, has done a pretty good job in strengthening the allied partnership arrangements that President Trump began with the so-called Quad, Japan, Australia, United States, and India, and then increasing the cooperation. I do believe, as we've said before, militarily, that's not where we should be. China obviously has dominance over the United States in the Pacific region. It's not something we like to talk about, but it is a fact. We're outgunned and we're outmanned. And I think there's a lot that can be done to improve the business relationships with China, so we're not transferring our technology. And any technology whatsoever that may indeed have a military application, if you're in China and manufacturing that capability, even though you're not dealing with the Chinese military at all, it will wind up in the hands of the Chinese military. We know that for a fact. Yeah. And I think there's much the United States government can do to assist businesses here in what they've got to stay away from in dealing with China. And we just got to get a lot tougher on that. And so we don't like government controlling our business. We're a capitalistic society. We're free market. But there is a national security interest here. And that is what has got to be emphasized. We don't do enough of it. And look at Director Wray just said in England last week. Yes. I mean, he's got a new Chinese espionage case every 12 hours. He's got over 2,000 cases he's dealing. China's penetration of American civil society is the most comprehensive that we have ever faced in our history. Yeah. And it's a huge challenge in pushing back on it. Has said this.
And Christopher Wray has said this now for several years. I want to get your take on national security around the Middle East, because National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has confirmed that the president will meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman during his visit to Saudi Arabia this week. Sullivan not clarifying if the two will shake hands or discuss the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, General. But the president is going to Israel, then he's going to Saudi Arabia. He's going to be asking them to put more oil on the market. What's your takeaway on what's most important out of this meeting? What can get done?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it is an important meeting. I'm in the camp that presidents of the United States have dealt with Saudi Arabia for 80 years, Republicans and Democrats, and the relationship has always been at the intersection what's in the United States' national interest and also what are about American values and Saudi Arabia's human rights violation. We've had to try to find a balance. Why is that? Saudi Arabia is the leader of the Arab world, de facto leader. They're also the arch rival of Iran in the region. And they are, while they're no longer the world's #1 oil producer, they are the world's #1 exporter of oil. And obviously, stable world oil prices is something that's in the interest of the administration. I think what they're going to want in discussions is extend the truce that exists right now with the war in Yemen. They need to counter Iran, and likely they're going to get an earful. Biden will get an earful from Israel and also from the Arabs on all of that. And then the other issue is President Biden obviously wants stable world prices, and many of those countries he's going to be sitting with at the meeting are oil producers and contribute to what those oil prices are. So that's, I think, is what's on the table here. I think it's the right thing to do, and I know he's going to get an earful from the Israelis about what's taking place. What I'd like to see come out of it as aspirational goals is begin to stitch together the Arab NATO that we have been talking about for a number of years. General Milley met with all of the chiefs of services in the region, the Arab chiefs and Israel, in March. That was a step in the right direction to try to coordinate missile defense and other issues dealing with the Iranians. And I would hope that Biden would strengthen the Arab Accords, the relationship between the Arabs and Israel. Something the Trump administration started, and the Biden administration is sort of half-stepping it. And I think it's because it was a Trump initiative. Let's get over that. This is a positive thing. And I know that Mohammed bin Salman at some point will normalize relationship with Israel. He may not do it as long as the is the king is alive. But he has, I think he wants to do it at some point, and certainly I hope President Biden brings that up, because that will be very significant.
By the way, an important story in the Journal this morning: Iran is going to be giving Moscow armed drones, and the U.S. has confirmed that Iran is now wanting to send armed drones, sell them to Russia in its war against Ukraine. Very troubling development there. General, it's good to see you as always. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, great talking to you, Maria. Have a great week.